Emma's hands shook as her father counted the coins, sealing her fate to a stranger. The metal clinked with finality in his weathered palm, while she stood frozen in her torn dress, bruises still purple along her arms from his last drunken rage. "She's yours now," her father slurred, not meeting her eyes. "Paid in full." The Lakota man before her stood tall and still, his dark eyes unreadable. Chief Dakota, they called him. Emma had heard whispers about the arrangement. Desperate white men trading daughters to settle debts with the tribe. She was just another transaction. "Look at me," Dakota said quietly. Emma's breath caught. She'd learned never to look directly at men. It only made the beatings worse. But something in his tone made her lift her chin slowly, expecting the familiar flash of anger or hunger in his gaze. Instead, she found something she didn't recognize. Gentleness, maybe. Or horror. "This is how white men treat their daughters." His voice carried disgust, but not at her. At the situation. At her father, still counting coins like she was livestock sold at market. "She's damaged goods," her father said with a bitter laugh. "But she can work, cook, clean, other things." He winked at Dakota with revolting familiarity. Emma flinched, wrapping her arms around herself. This was it. Her new master would take her to his lodge and use her however he pleased. She'd endured it before. She could endure it again. "Leave," Dakota told her father. His tone brooked no argument. Her father tucked the coins away and stumbled toward his horse. "Pleasure doing business. You need another? I got more daughters." Emma watched him ride into the darkness, abandoning her completely. No goodbye, no backward glance, just empty prairie and the strange man who owned her now. "Come," Dakota said. She followed him through the scattered lodges, past curious eyes and whispered conversations. The scent of wood smoke and cooking meat filled the air. Children played between the dwellings, their laughter echoing in the night. He stopped before a large lodge decorated with painted symbols. "This is my home." Emma waited for him to drag her inside, to claim what he'd purchased. Instead, he gathered furs and blankets from within and made a bed beneath the stars. "Sleep inside," he said simply. "You are safe." She stared at him in confusion. "Where will you sleep?" "Here." He settled onto the blanket pile as if it were perfectly natural. "The lodge is yours tonight." "I don't understand." Her voice cracked with exhaustion and disbelief. "You paid for me." His jaw tightened. "I paid to remove you from a man who beats women. Nothing more." Emma's legs nearly gave way. In all her nightmares about this moment, she had never imagined kindness, never imagined choice. "But I'm your wife now," she whispered. "You are under my protection," he corrected. "When you're ready, if you're ever ready, you may choose what comes next." The words hit her like a physical blow. Choice. When had she ever been offered choice? Dakota pulled a thick buffalo robe around his shoulders and lay back, closing his eyes, dismissing her, giving her space. Emma stood trembling in the lodge entrance, afraid to move, afraid to believe. But slowly she stepped inside and let the entrance flap fall closed behind her. For the first time in years, she slept without barring the door. Emma woke expecting chains but found warm soup and soft furs instead. Sunlight filtered through the lodge walls, and the scent of sage and sweetgrass filled the air. She sat up quickly, disoriented, her heart racing from old habit. The entrance flap moved aside, and she tensed. but it was an older Lakota woman carrying a wooden bowl, her weathered face kind. "I am Winona," the woman said in accented English. "Dakota asked me to bring food." Emma accepted the bowl with shaking hands, rich meat broth with tender vegetables. Her stomach cramped with hunger, but years of training made her pause. "Am I allowed?" Winona's expression softened. "Child, you eat, you rest, you heal." Through the partially open flap, Emma could see Dakota outside, gentle breaking a young horse. His movements were patient, controlled. When the animal shied, he stepped back, giving it space. No harsh words, no violence. She'd never seen a man work with such restraint. "He is good chief," Winona observed, following her gaze. "Lost wife in winter fever 2 seasons past. Much sadness in his heart." Emma sipped the warm broth, watching him. "Why did he buy me?" "Buy?" Winona made a sound of disgust. "He heard white father beating daughter. Went to stop it. Father said only way to save you was purchase." Her dark eyes flashed. "Dakota, he has too much honor to let harm continue. A rescue, then, not a purchase for pleasure or labor." Emma's chest tightened with unfamiliar emotion. "What does he expect of me?" "Nothing," Winona said firmly. "He expects nothing." Emma watched Dakota work through the morning. Children approached him freely, laughing when he lifted them onto gentle horses. Women sought his counsel without fear. Even the camp dogs followed him with tails wagging. This was a man people trusted, a man people loved. When the horse finally accepted his touch, Dakota's face lit with quiet satisfaction. He praised the animal in his own language, his voice warm with approval. Emma found herself leaning forward, drawn to that voice, to that gentleness. A shadow fell across the lodge entrance. She jerked back instinctively, spilling soup down her dress. But it was only Dakota, and he stopped immediately when he saw her fear. "I'm sorry," he said, keeping his distance. "I wanted to ask if you needed anything." She stared at him. When had anyone asked what she needed? Her voice failed. Too many emotions crashed through her. Gratitude, confusion, the terrible hope that maybe, just maybe, she was truly safe. "May I come closer?" he asked. The question was so gentle, so respectful, that tears sprang to her eyes. She nodded. He approached slowly, like he had with the frightened horse. When he was close enough to see her clearly, his expression grew troubled. "Your bruises," he said quietly. "They are healing well." She touched her cheek self-consciously. "They don't hurt anymore." "Good." He settled onto his heels, being careful not to tower over her. "Winona says you ate. That is also good." Emma studied his face, searching for deception, for hidden motives. She found only sincere concern. "Why?" she whispered. "Why what? Why are you being kind to me?" Dakota was quiet for a long moment. "Because everyone deserves kindness," he said finally, "and you have had too little." Something cracked open in Emma's chest, some frozen place that had been locked away for years. When she didn't flinch as he rose to leave, she knew something fundamental had shifted between them. Maybe, just maybe, she was beginning to heal. The nightmare brought her screaming awake, and gentle hands steadied her without demanding explanation. Emma found herself pressed against Dakota's chest, his arms around her, his voice murmuring soothing words in Lakota, while she shook with terror. "Father, please don't." she gasped, still trapped between sleep and waking. "You are safe," Dakota whispered. "Emma, you are safe." The sound of her name on his lips anchored her to the present. She was in his lodge, wrapped in soft furs, not cowering in her father's cabin. The hands holding her steady were gentle, not cruel. But shame flooded through her as reality returned. She'd screamed, woken half the camp, probably, proven herself weak and damaged. "I'm sorry," she choked out, trying to pull away. "I'm so sorry." "No." His arms tightened just enough to keep her close, not trapped. "Never apologize for surviving." Something in his voice made her look up. In the dim light filtering through the lodge walls, his face was etched with understanding pain. This was a man who knew nightmares. "You lost your wife," she said suddenly, remembering Winona's words. His jaw tightened. "The fever took many that winter. I held her while she died, helpless to save her." His voice carried old anguish. "Some scars live in our sleep." Emma stared at him. He understood. Not the details of her trauma, but the weight of it. The way it followed you into dreams and stole your peace. "My father sold me because I fought back," she whispered. "The last time he raised his hand, I hit him with a poker. Drew blood." Her voice grew stronger with the memory. "He said I was too dangerous to keep." "Good," Dakota said fiercely. "You should fight. You should draw blood." His approval stunned her. Every man in her life had demanded submission, punished resistance, but Dakota celebrated her strength. "I was afraid you'd think less of me," she admitted, "for being violent. I think more of you." His thumb traced her cheekbone where old bruises had faded. "You protected yourself when no one else would. That takes courage." Emma's breath caught. When had anyone called her courageous? "The nightmares," she said hesitantly, "they come often. Then I will be here often." Simple words, no grand promises, no demands. Just quiet certainty that she wouldn't face the darkness alone. Emma studied his face in the growing dawn light. Strong features softened by genuine care. Eyes that held no judgment, no expectation, just patience. "When your wife died," she asked softly, "how did you bear it?" "One day," he said simply, "then another, until the days began to feel like living instead of just surviving." One day at a time. Emma could manage one day. "I don't know how to trust," she confessed. "I don't know how to stop waiting for the blow that's coming." "The blow will not come from me," Dakota said. "This I swear on my wife's spirit." The solemnity of his vow moved through her like medicine. She believed him. Against all reason and experience, she believed this man would never hurt her. When he started to pull away, giving her space, Emma's hand closed around his wrist. Not gripping, not desperate, just connecting. "Stay," she whispered. He settled back beside her, letting her keep that small contact. Her fingers against his wrist. Her choice to touch instead of fleeing. "I will stay as long as you need," he promised. Emma closed her eyes, feeling his steady pulse beneath her fingertips. For the first time since childhood, she felt protected instead of afraid. The nightmares might return, the fear might resurface. But tonight, she was not alone. Tonight, she was choosing to trust. Her father returned with armed men, demanding his property back. Emma watched from the lodge entrance as 3 riders approached the camp, her stomach dropping when she recognized the slouched figure leading them. "That's far enough," Dakota said, stepping between the riders and the camp. His voice carried absolute authority. Emma's father dismounted, swaying slightly, still drinking, even this early. Behind him, a man wearing a sheriff's badge and another she didn't recognize flanked him like crude bodyguards. "Where's my daughter?" her father slurred. "I got legal papers. She belongs with me." The sheriff held up a document. Marriage contract was illegal. She's a minor under her father's authority. Emma's blood turned to ice. They'd found a way. Some legal loophole to drag her back to hell. "The girl stays," Dakota said calmly. "You can't keep her," the sheriff replied. "This is federal land. American law applies." Other members of the tribe had gathered, forming a loose circle around the confrontation. Emma could feel their tension, their readiness to protect their chief. But she also knew the reality. 3 armed white men with legal papers could mean trouble for the entire tribe. She couldn't let Dakota pay for her freedom with his people's safety. "Emma," her father called, spotting her. "Get out here, girl. We're going home." Every instinct screamed at her to hide, to cling to Dakota and beg him not to let them take her. But she'd found something in these past weeks. Not just safety, but strength. She stepped out of the lodge. "There she is," her father said with satisfaction. "Come on, then. I've got a new husband picked out for you. Man who can handle your wild ways." Emma's stomach churned, but she kept walking until she stood beside Dakota. Close enough to feel his warmth, close enough to draw courage from his steady presence. "No," she said clearly. "What?" Her father's face darkened. "You don't get to say no, girl." "I'm not going with you." Emma's voice grew stronger with each word. "I'm not your property to sell." "The hell you're not. You're my daughter, and you'll do as you're told." The sheriff reached for his gun, but Dakota held up a hand. Not threatening, just stopping. "The woman has spoken," Dakota said. "She chooses to stay." "She's not a woman, she's a child," her father spat. "And she's coming home." Emma felt the familiar fear rising, the automatic response to her father's rage that had kept her cowering for years. But something else rose with it, something fiercer. "I am 19 years old," she said, her voice ringing across the camp. "Old enough to choose, old enough to say no to men who hurt me." "You ungrateful little—" "I choose Chief Dakota," Emma continued, amazing herself with her boldness. "I choose this tribe. I choose safety and kindness over fear and pain." Her father's face went purple with rage, but the sheriff was frowning, clearly uncertain about the legal implications of a woman publicly declaring her choice. "She's been brainwashed," her father sputtered, "turned against her own people." "I've been healed," Emma corrected. "For the first time in my life, I know what it feels like to sleep without fear, to eat without permission, to speak without expecting a blow." She turned to face the sheriff directly. "You want to drag me back to a man who beats women? You want to be part of that?" The sheriff's hand dropped from his gun. Whatever papers he carried, whatever legal authority he claimed, Emma could see doubt creeping into his eyes. "This is Indian territory," Dakota added quietly. "Federal law, yes, but also treaty law. The woman seeks sanctuary. She has it." Emma reached for Dakota's hand, her fingers interlacing with his. Public declaration. Public choice. "I stand with my chief," she said firmly, "and he stands with me." The third man muttered something about it not being worth the trouble. The sheriff rolled up his papers with obvious reluctance, and her father, seeing his support wavering, could only curse and threaten. But they left, all three of them riding back toward the settlement with empty hands. Emma watched them go, trembling with reaction. She'd done it. She'd chosen herself, chosen safety, chosen the man who'd given her back her voice. "You were magnificent," Dakota said softly. Emma turned to him, tears streaming down her face, but for the first time in years they were tears of relief. "I chose you," she whispered. "And I choose you," he replied, bringing her hand to his lips. "Always." Emma's heart raced not from fear, but from the way Dakota looked at her across the evening fire. 3 weeks had passed since her father's failed attempt to reclaim her, and something had shifted between them. The careful distance he'd maintained was giving way to something deeper. "You are thoughtful tonight," he observed, his voice warm in the firelight. Emma pulled her blanket closer, not from cold, but from the flutter of nerves in her stomach. "I've been thinking about what comes next." "And what do you think comes next?" She met his eyes across the flames. "I don't know. I've never been allowed to think about the future before." Dakota rose and moved around the fire, settling beside her with careful space between them. "What would you want? If you could choose anything," the question hung in the air like smoke from the fire. Emma stared into the flames, gathering courage. "I would want," she began slowly, "to stop feeling like a guest in your life." "You are not a guest. Then what am I?" She turned to face him fully. "I sleep in your lodge, eat your food, wear clothes your people made for me. But I don't know what I am to you." Dakota was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough with emotion. "You are the woman who made me remember that life could hold more than duty and survival." Emma's breath caught. "What are you saying?" "I am saying that I wake each morning grateful you are safe. I am saying that your smile has become precious to me. I am saying that somewhere in healing your wounds, you healed something in me too." Her heart hammered against her ribs. "Dakota, I know you have had no choice in matters of marriage, no voice in your own fate." He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, his fingers touched hers. "But if you could choose freely, if you felt ready, if your heart—" "My heart chose you weeks ago," Emma whispered. "I was just afraid to believe you might choose me too." His thumb traced across her knuckles. "You are not something to be chosen or rejected. You are someone to be cherished, protected, loved." The word hung between them like a bridge. Love. Emma had begun to understand it in his daily kindnesses, his patience, his gentle strength, but hearing it spoken aloud made it real. "I love you," she said, testing the words. They felt foreign and wonderful on her tongue. "I love your gentleness with frightened horses and frightened women. I love how your people trust you completely. I love that you gave me time to heal before asking for anything." Dakota's eyes closed briefly. "Emma, I love that you sleep under the stars rather than make me uncomfortable. I love that you ask permission before entering your own lodge. I love that you see strength in me instead of damage." When he opened his eyes, they blazed with emotion. "May I kiss you?" Such a simple question, such a revolutionary concept, being asked instead of taken from. "Yes," she breathed. He cupped her face with infinite tenderness, his lips touching hers like a promise. Soft, sweet, nothing like the brutal kisses forced on her before. This was connection, not conquest. When they broke apart, Emma was crying again. "Did I hurt you?" Dakota asked immediately. "No," she laughed through the tears. "You made me feel treasured. I didn't know kisses could feel like that." He thumbed away her tears, his expression fierce with protectiveness. "They will always feel like that between us. I swear it." Emma believed him. This man who had proven his word in dozens of small ways would prove it in this too. "Marry me," she said suddenly. "Not because of papers or payments or arrangements, but because I choose you and you choose me." Dakota's smile was brilliant in the firelight. "Yes, but Emma—" "What?" "Our first marriage will be by Lakota custom. White man's law means nothing here. Do you understand?" She thought of her father's legal papers, of sheriffs and contracts and ownership. Then she thought of Dakota's vows of protection, freely given and faithfully kept. "I understand," she said. "I want their marriage laws have nothing to do with love. Yours do." He kissed her again, and Emma tasted her future on his lips, bright and chosen and entirely her own. The morning of her true wedding, Emma woke without fear for the first time in years. Sunlight streamed through the lodge walls, and she could hear the camp stirring with preparations. Today, she would marry Dakota not from desperation or transaction, but from love freely chosen. Winona entered carrying traditional wedding clothes, a beautiful dress of soft doeskin decorated with intricate beadwork, and Emma's breath caught at the artistry. "This was Dakota's first wife's dress," Winona explained gently. "She would want it worn again by someone who makes him happy." Emma touched the delicate beadwork with reverent fingers. "Are you certain? I don't want to cause pain. Child, you have brought him back to life. She would be grateful." Winona's weathered hands were gentle as she helped Emma into the dress. "Today you become sister to our people, daughter to me." Tears blurred Emma's vision. Family, she was gaining family. The ceremony took place at sunset, the sky painted in shades of gold and crimson. Emma walked to meet Dakota between rows of tribal members who had become her people. Their faces were warm with approval and acceptance. Dakota waited beside the tribal elder, magnificent in traditional wedding regalia. When their eyes met across the gathering, his face lit with such joy that Emma's remaining fears melted away completely. The elder spoke in Lakota, his voice carrying ancient words of binding and blessing. Emma didn't understand every phrase, but she felt the power in them, the sacred weight of promises made before community and Creator. When Dakota took her hands, his were steady and sure. "I vow to protect your body and honor your spirit," he said in English so she could understand completely. "I vow to share my strength when you're weary and my comfort when you grieve. I vow to choose you each morning and cherish you each night for all our days." Emma's voice was clear and strong as she replied, "I vow to stand beside you in joy and sorrow, to share your burdens and celebrate your victories. I vow to trust your love and offer mine freely. I vow to choose you above all others for all my days." The elder bound their hands with cord decorated with sacred symbols, sealing their union. The tribe erupted in celebration, drums, singing, the joyful noise of community approval. But Emma only had eyes for her husband, her choice, her love. The feast lasted long into the night, filled with laughter and stories and traditional songs. Emma found herself embraced by women she barely knew, welcomed by warriors who nodded respect, blessed by elders who saw past her white skin to her healed heart. When the celebration finally wound down, and they could escape to their lodge, Emma felt nervous excitement flutter in her chest. This was her wedding night, but everything about it was different from the brutal taking she'd expected from life. Dakota lit candles around the lodge, creating gentle light. "Are you tired?" "No." Emma touched his face, marveling at her freedom to do so. "I'm happy. Truly, completely happy." He caught her hand and pressed it flat against his chest, over his heart. "Do you feel that? How it races when you touch me?" She nodded, her own pulse quickening. "That is what love feels like," he said softly. "Not fear, not duty, just joy that you chose me." Emma rose on her toes and kissed him, pouring all her gratitude and wonder and newfound freedom into the contact. When they broke apart, she was breathless. "Show me," she whispered. "Show me what love feels like." And in the candlelit privacy of their lodge, surrounded by the sounds of their sleeping tribe, Dakota did. With infinite patience and reverence, he showed her that her body was meant for pleasure, not pain, that intimacy could be surrender without submission, that marriage could be partnership instead of ownership. Emma woke the next morning, wrapped in her husband's arms, sunlight filtering through the lodge walls, her heart full of wonder at the life she'd never dared imagine. She was no longer the broken girl sold by her father. She was a wife, freely chosen and deeply loved. She was a member of a tribe that valued her strength. She was a woman who had survived hell and found heaven. She was home.